Well, hey, everybody. This is Garth, and I'm here for another sidebar episode. And I'm really excited to talk to Melissa Maffeo today. We go back a little bit. I'm sure we're going to cover that in this short conversation. But Melissa has written a book, and we're going to hear all about it today. And I'm just going to be the first person to encourage you, go out and get it. So, Melissa, welcome to this sidebar conversation.
Thank you, Garth. I appreciate it.
Now, where did we first meet? Was it ACT?
It had to have been ACT, yeah.
Right.
Years ago.
Annual conference on teaching years ago. We're going to get into the backstory of this book, but let's just start there. It's called The Science of the Supernatural. How long have you been at this book for?
Oh my God, years and years. So I don't even know where to start with it. I think where it officially started was me reading some research about people looking into what happens in people's brains when they have what they interpret to be a supernatural experience. And I had no idea that people did research on that. And it was so cool to me. So I had the good fortune to be able to design a course at Wake Forest. And it was a half semester special topics in psychology class called Science of the Supernatural. We read a lot of the papers. The students had a project to do. You know, some of my students really took that project really far. Like they went to like this haunted mansion near us and like pulled out a Ouija board at midnight and tried to conjure something. They went and got like their tarot cards read and all that. And then, you know, COVID happened. So we stopped teaching that. And at right around the same time. Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
So you read this research. Did you just come across it? Were you looking for it?
So you know what it was? I heard a podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. I heard, do you know the podcast Science Versus?
I have heard of it. I have not listened to it.
It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
So I definitely recommend it.
Oh my goodness. My wife just sent me an episode yesterday.
Oh,
yeah.
Amazing. Great.
Now
Great
that's why it's so fresh. Okay.
Was it their ghost episode?
It was on autism.
Okay.
Diagnosis of autism. So I actually need to go listen to it. I'm really interested in that. So, but okay. So you heard it on a podcast.
So I heard it on a podcast. I think Science Versus does a really cool job of like distilling the science behind all sorts of different kinds of topics. They kind of cover everything. So they did one on ghosts and they interviewed this anomalistic psychologist named Chris French. He's based in London and he had done some really, really interesting research and he's based his career off of this. And like I said, I had no idea that this existed. So I dug into the literature and I thought it was so cool. And I was like, I need to learn more about this. As a person who's always really liked ghost stories and horror movies and all that.
So that's what we do, right? We find an interest and then we subject our students to it. So
100%.
You used a word that I don't know, anomalistic. Is that right?
Yes, anomalistic psychology. It's a branch of psychology, not well talked about, but you're going to love it because it contrasts with what we call parapsychology. So parapsychology is psychologists and researchers who are interested in paranormal activity and attempt to measure it. Anomalistic psychology is also interested in paranormal activity, but they come at it using a more appropriate scientific method. So they come at it without a prior assumption that paranormal activity exists. So it's, I think, a little bit more in line with what we would think about with research methods.
Interesting.
So it's pretty cool ways to teach research methods to students, too.
Yeah. I'm sure it has lots of applications, and I'm sure students are just all in for this. Now, you said you had students going to haunted houses and doing these kinds of things, but so, like the broad scope of supernatural has to be like even mainstream religion has some supernatural feel to it, or is that not really in the wheelhouse here?
So it's tough. That's a really tough line to walk because paranormal or supernatural it has a really broad definition. In my book, I didn't touch religion. And so I was really thinking about things like ghosts, why we might perceive weird sensations that maybe we can't even describe as a ghost, communicating with spirits, psychic abilities, aliens. We talked about aliens and alien abductions. So I did didn't touch religion, but I think that it could absolutely fall under that category. And I think a really important feature is to say that we can't prove that supernatural or paranormal things do or don't exist. Right? We don't have those abilities. We can use the techniques that we have to see what we can manipulate, what we can find relationships between, and then we can try to find a parsimonious explanation for it. And at the moment, there kind of isn't one about whether or not there is or isn't supernatural, but we do have a lot of very non-supernatural explanations for why people might have these interesting sensations.
Okay. Perfect. Let's put a pin in that. Let's go back to COVID hits. You've been teaching this class, and then I'm guessing you don't take it into an online course, right?
I did, and it didn't go very well. It's not a very good virtual format. Yeah. I would love to teach it again. Haven't really had time with all the other things that need to be taught. But around that same time, I must have been on a listserv for Cambridge University Press from one of the editors there, and they were putting out a call for book proposals. And so I had this idea, and I was like, I really want to, synthesize all of this stuff. I've always really I like writing. And I just was like, I have this crazy harebrained idea. What do you think? And he was like, actually, yeah, let's work with it. So it worked. It was great. I put in a proposal. That was in 2022 when the proposal went in. Worked on it for a few years, and it's finally out. And the publisher sent it to me yesterday. This is my first time seeing the book.
Oh, it's cool. Yeah. That's so great. Tell us about that looked like a hardcover. Is that a hardcover?
This is a hardcover, yeah. Oh, it's hard and soft cover.
Yeah, it's really neat looking. Like the artwork is cool. I know folks can't see this, but go Google it. It's like
sorry, my camera's on blur.
Yeah, it's black with these big green letters that just says science of the. What does it say on the front? What's the whole title?
Science of the Supernatural: Critical Thinking for the Mind and Brain.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's great. So you really approach this scientifically through your psychologist lens. I really appreciate what you said about, to me, I'm just finishing up, we're on terms. And so I'm just finishing up my research methods course. And, this is like one of the main things I want my students to walk away with is like, we often don't say this is the way it is, or this is not the way it is. It's that we've got some information now, and we are looking for more information on things. But this is an interesting one, right? Like, I imagine that there are people pretty hostile about beliefs on one side and the other side, right?
I'm sure yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So how did what was your bias coming in? Did you have any?
I personally am a nonbeliever. I have never, hold on, let me back that up. I have never had an experience that I interpret as supernatural. However, I have had experiences, but my brain interprets them as coincidences. And I guess I can't really say what really happened because of the way my own brain works and my own, biases. I was at a paranormal investigation a few years ago. So I teamed up with some local paranormal investigators, and they brought me on one of their investigations, and it was really cool, really fun. And we were using like the flashlights to communicate with whatever was in the house. And so the way she did it is there's like one flashlight that is supposed to be the yes flashlight, and the other flashlight that's supposed to be the no flashlight. It's like a mag light, so you kind of unscrew it a little bit so the connection's loose. So any kind of like vibration or anything like that could make the connection come together so that the light flashes. And so she's talking to the spirit and asking it all these yes or no type of questions. But only the yes flashlight was turning on, and it was turning on like not always at the appropriate time. It just seemed to be kind of random that she was interpreting these as all yes answers from the spirit. And in my head, I'm like, oh, she needs to ask a no question because the no no flashlight hasn't turned on at all. And I wasn't going to tell her how to do her job or anything, so I didn't say anything. But it was great because right then she did the best thing I think she could have done. She said, okay, you've been saying yes a lot. Can you please just turn on the no flashlight? And at that moment, I am not exaggerating, at that exact moment, the no flashlight turned on. And like, it wasn't just a super quick flash. It was like on and then turned off. And I was like, oh my God, if I was a believer, like that's it. And I was like, maybe if I see a couple more of those coincidences, I might be convinced. There weren't any more of those coincidences, but it was really cool.
So was like most of your research in this book, was it topical? Were chapters basically different kinds of paranormal or supernatural beliefs?
That's what I went for. Yeah. So it started off, so it kind of asked some bigger questions too, because I started off with the neurobiology and the psychology of fear. Like what is fear? How does it exist in our brain? And, we talked about some classic psychology cases like patient SM who doesn't have an amygdala. She's in there. A lot of work by some of the historical researchers like Joe Ledoux about the neurobiology of fear and its evolutionary purpose for us. And then the second chapter is like, okay, if we have this like really ingrained circuitry that's supposed to keep us away from danger, why do some people seek out danger? That's pretty counterintuitive. And it talked about a couple of case studies of people who have done these really heroic acts, like putting themselves at major risk to save a stranger. And so it talks about how to override that fear circuitry and maybe a little bit of the neurobiology about how to turn on or off like the fight or flight response. And it kind of compares that with like, well, we also seek out, haunted attractions and haunted movies and like, why do we like that? So it gets into empathy and things like that. And then it goes more into the topical stuff like ghosts. So there's a chapter on electromagnetic fluctuations, how those might interfere with our brain to give us sensations that some people interpret as ghosts. And there's some pretty cool research in that area too. And then it goes into nighttime things. So statistically, like most people have supernatural experiences at night. So it goes into what happens when we're asleep, sleep paralysis, things like that. There's a chapter on alien abduction. So that goes into false memory, misinformation effect, that sort of thing. Let me see, psychics, tea leaves and tarot cards. So I went and got a psychic, my tarot cards read from a guy. That was an interesting experience. So it talks about that. And
did you write about your firsthand experiences?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
There's a couple of firsthand experiences in here. And then the next chapter is, or the last chapter is on psychedelics, which is interesting because they are not supernatural, right? They are plants or medicines or drugs or whatever you want to call them that you can, willfully take into your body and they alter your perception. But what's interesting is that a lot of people who take them claim that their perception is being altered in a way that like makes them at one with the universe or lets them talk to God or whatever it is. So like, the question, and so many ancient civilizations have based their, religions and faiths around some of these plants. So the question is, are they making your brain more mystical, or is it, what's happening in your brain when you take those? And then I also have a chapter on real life supernatural things. So there is a chapter on real life zombies. It does a deep dive on the rabies virus, which is my favorite virus, toxoplasmosis, things like that. So very real things that seem supernatural.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. Did you find yourself having to like going down a path and realizing quickly that you were out of like psychological science and you were into physics or you were into some other area where you're like, ooh, I just don't know how to do this part?
It was, that happened a lot.
Yeah.
I think some of it happened in the extraterrestrial chapter, because one of the things that I really wanted to get at is so people claim that they've been abducted by aliens. There's three ways to explain that, right? The first way is that they're just bald-faced lying. The second way is that they have some kind of something happening in their brain to make them believe that they've been abducted. Or the third way is that they've actually been abducted. I don't know that I don't think there's another explanation for that. So most people are not lying. Some are, but most aren't. So we kind of discard that explanation. And then the psychological explanation, we spend a lot of time, like I said, about like false memories and things like that, suggestibility. But then the question, maybe they really were abducted. I ended up, and I'm really interested in this, but it's also something I don't know very much about. I was going into a lot of the research that came back from like the James Webb Telescope to try to find out what is out there beyond our solar system. And I was reading about like chemical signatures on exoplanets, and that was definitely out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting. So if I had to just press you on this, so alien life, you don't believe in alien life then?
Oh, no, I do believe in alien life.
Okay.
I believe probably there's some sort of life out there. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's intelligent life. Maybe it is. It could be. I hope there is. I think that there's some really compelling information coming back from the telescope, and we just do not have the technology to look out as far as we can, and look for the things that we would like to look for. And again, it's like it's beyond a needle in a haystack, it's, we're looking at chemical signatures on these planets that are Earth-like, but that's assuming that Earth is the only planet that can sustain life. So we're looking for things that we already know. If we're talking about hundreds of millions of light years away from Earth, maybe there is something that's not at all Earth-like that can sustain some other kind of life that's maybe not carbon-based or something, and we can't fathom it. So I don't know the answer to that. I think that probably I think there must be, but also I have no idea.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds like you stayed close to your empirical home here, and I think that is a really nice way to ask these questions. And I imagine, I guess my question for you is, how would you like to see people use your book?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I hope that people are interested in it. I hope it's fun. I guess that's my first answer, is that I hope it's just flat out enjoyable. Because it was really fun to write. It was really fun to do the research. And new research has come out since I've published, and I'm like, oh no, I need more references in here. So I think my first answer is I hope it's just enjoyable for people. I intended it to be for a non-psychologist, non-neuroscientist, or non-scientist even. So I hope that anybody without a background in psychology or neuroscience could pick it up. There is some pretty complicated research that's in there, and I really hope I did an okay job distilling it. But I think it would be a really good adjunctive text for many different types of courses. Intro psych could be definitely one. My own intro psych class, I've supernaturalified my intro psych class. So we go through the APA 5 pillars, and in each pillar, we talk about how we could examine this thing through a supernatural lens. And that's been really fun. I think the students like it. So it could be an adjunctive text for an intro psych class, any kind of class on critical thinking, anything like that, introductory neuroscience, or if anyone has the opportunity to do a special topics class. I know lots of places offer them on, science, magic, belief, anything like that.
Yeah, well, fantastic. So folks can get this at, I think, at the cambridge.org website, their bookstore, or you could probably get it, I guess, wherever books are sold, like Amazon or wherever, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, fantastic. Well, folks, the book is Science of the Supernatural by Melissa Maffeo, our good friend and STP member. So become a member of STP if you're not. And Melissa, am I going to see you at ACT this year?
Definitely.
Okay, that's the annual conference on teaching, folks. And are you going to put in some sort of talk on this?
I don't know. Should I?
Maybe you should. I'd love to see that. But
Okay.
All right. All right. Melissa, is there anything else that we didn't cover today?
Jeez. No, I don't think so. Thanks for having me on, Garth. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, and in particular to promote our colleagues through STP. And I've actually watched this. You go through this process. Oh, I do have a fun last question for you. If somebody's thinking about a book project, like, do you have any words of like wisdom, what you've learned through this whole thing, kind of bringing it from beginning to end? What would you share?
Oh boy. It's going to take a lot longer than you think it will. Keep going. There's so many different ways to publish a book, and I think you really want to think about what kind of audience and reception you want your book to have. I have a colleague who's going through this process right now, and his process is very different than the process I went through. And so there's lots of different avenues to publish a book. I would say start reaching out to publishers, start reaching out to editors, and there's probably going to be a lot of editors at ACT that just can chat and just give some initial feedback about what a good outlet for the book would be.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Melissa, and I'll see you in October.
Sure will. Thanks, Garth.